Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sports Stuff. Let's go ahead and get started. First up, Colin Kaepernick has been spotted wearing socks that depict cops as pigs. If you ask me, the depiction of all cops being pigs is incorrect and immature. Kaepernick is trying to advocate for a good cause, but he's once again doing it incorrectly. I understand that there are certain policemen who abuse the badge and immediately resort to excessive force. With that being said, that does not make all cops bad, and to wear these socks as protest, I feel like is doing too much. To label all cops as pigs is the same as for cops to label all African Americans as criminals. It doesn't make you seem any better. Kaepernick, I understand what you're trying to say, but you're 0 for 2, friend. In other NFL news, the NFL has announced that the draft will once again be moving. The last 2 years, the NFL draft was held in Chicago, and now the draft will be moved to Philadelphia. The NFL had initially wanted to move the draft to Philadelphia, but the mayor was concerned about putting the city into debt, but they were able to find some people who were able to finance the event, and in 2017, the draft will be hosted in Philadelphia. It's going to be held on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, and the players are going to walk up the Rocky Steps to the Art Museum. And now for a quick injury update in the NBA. Blazers power forward Noah Vonleh had a bone fragment removed from his right thigh. The surgery was successful, and he will need about 3 to 4 weeks to recover. Vonleh was a role player for the Blazers last year, and he still is very young and is still developing. I think Vonleh, over the course of the next couple of years, will mature and develop as a true power forward. This injury shouldn't be too much of a setback, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery and he'll be ready for the season. Then, in pretty scary news, Los Angeles Angels superstar Mike Trout was involved in a pretty horrific crash. I'll put a link to a video of the wreckage in the description. Mike Trout was apparently driving with some friends last night on the highway, got into a pretty serious accident. There was one serious injury, but Mike Trout, fortunately, was able to walk away unharmed, and he will be traveling with the team to Seattle this coming weekend. Also, there's some rumors brewing around Diamondbacks ace pitcher Zack Greinke, and the Dodgers are interested actually in trading for him. Greinke started out his career with the Royals, and then he signed a deal with the Dodgers to pitch for them for a couple seasons, and then last season opted not to sign with the Dodgers and instead signed with the Diamondbacks. Greinke has had a rough month of August, but the Dodgers are entering a playoff push, more on that in a second, and adding Zack Greinke to their rotation may be just what they need to push their way through into the playoffs. The Diamondbacks did make an actual trade, though. They traded with the Orioles and sent over Michael Bourn, and in return got outfielder Jason Heinrich. Michael Bourn is adding a pretty speedy defender and base runner to the Orioles, and it does add to their outfield depth, so a pretty good move by the Orioles for sure. Now with the beginning of September, I want to give a quick MLB playoff race update as we are coming in on the closing month of the regular season. First, let's start off with the American League. In the American League East, we have Toronto leading the way, and they're only 2 games up with the Boston Red Sox, and Baltimore is not far behind. They're 4 games back as well. In the Central, you have Cleveland leading the division, and Detroit is 4.5 games back. In the West, you have Texas leading the way by a large margin of 8.5 games over Houston. And if we take a look at the wild card race, right now the Boston Red Sox are currently leading the wild card race, and Baltimore and Detroit are actually tied for that second place wild card spot, and the Astros are only 1 game back of that second spot. The Yankees are two and a half back, Kansas City 3 back. The wild card race in the American League right now is very close, and I honestly think that any one of those 7 teams you see right there could end up being in the wild card. It really just depends on how strongly they finish the month of September. My prediction, the way Boston's been playing over the last few months, I'm going to go ahead and say Boston's going to take the spot. The second spot really is up for grabs, and I think it's going to come down to the wire between Houston and Baltimore. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the National League. Right now in the East, you have the Washington Nationals leading the Mets by a large margin of 9 games. In the Central, you have the Cubbies leading the Cardinals by 15 games, and in the West, you have the Dodgers leading the Giants by 1.5 games. And if we take a look at the wild card right now, the Giants are in the top spot, and the Cardinals are in the second spot, but there is right now what appears to be a four-way race for that second spot between the Mets, the Pirates, and Miami. Pirates in the past have consistently made the wild card or made the playoffs and have lost in the wild card round more often than not, including 2014 when the Giants took the World Series that year. I say the top two spots that are right now, that's pretty much how it's going to hold up. The Giants are still in contention for the National League West lead. There's still a whole month of baseball left, and the Giants and Dodgers play each other for the final series of the season. And we could see it come down to that final series. It'll just depend on who's on top. Either way, I think the National League West is going to have a wild card finisher, and the Cardinals seem to be holding pretty steady. The Mets are close on their tail. The wild card race is going to be between those two teams, and it's going to come down to the wire. So if we take a look at the division standings right now, what do we know? Well, we know that at least 3 divisions are pretty much locked down, barring some horrible month of September. At this point, the Cubs would have to lose pretty much every single game throughout the month in order for them to lose that division lead. So that doesn't look like that's happening. You take a look at Texas, they've been hot ever since the second half of the season started, and they have not looked back at all. I do not see them slumping anytime soon. I think they're going to take the division as well. And you take a look at Washington. Washington has a very, very steady lead right now. I think the Mets are going to cut into that lead a little bit coming into the closing month, but they're certainly not going to take the division. The Mets really set their sights on the second wild card spot. So then we look at the remaining 3 divisions. The Cleveland Indians right now are 4.5 on the Tigers, and that is a pretty solid lead, but that is not undoable for the Tigers. So the Tigers can still set their sights on that division win. That being said, it would take a horrible slump from the Cleveland Indians, who have been red hot pretty much since the middle of June, in order for them to lose that division lead. The Cleveland Indians are going to ride the wave, and they're going to ride the wave into the playoffs. And then you look at the American League East with the Toronto Blue Jays, who have been solid pretty much all year, and they have a very, very solid roster. And the Boston Red Sox are only 2 games back. At this point, it is tough to tell who's going to win that division. It really could go either way. If I were to make a prediction, I would predict that the Toronto would win the division. I think Boston's going to win the wild card. I believe that division is going to come down to the wire, much like the National League West is. And now, of course, we take a look at the National League West, where the Giants have the worst record in the MLB since the All-Star break, after posting the best record in the MLB before the All-Star break started. And then you have the Dodgers, who went on a surge during this time and cut through a 6.5 game lead to now put themselves up 1.5 games. This division definitely is going to come down to the wire. Like I said, the Giants and Dodgers face each other for the final series of the season, September 30th through October 2nd. The Giants do have an advantage going into that series because it will be at home for them. So that is a plus for them, but they have been hit with the injury bug recently. Kennard Span does have a stiff neck. He's listed as day-to-day. Gregor Blanco is still out. The Giants have activated Josh Osich, who was on the DL, and Mac Williamson, who also was on the DL, and those were 2 pretty key elements to their team when they were hit with the injury bug earlier in the season. But the Dodgers have been looking strong, and the Giants face a pretty tough series right now against the Chicago Cubs, and the Dodgers are currently coming up against the San Diego Padres. So how the Giants and Dodgers do in these next 2 series could be very pivotal in how the division goes. And that's it for today's Stuff on Sports. I want to know what you guys think, how the MLB playoff race is going to go. Pretty much 3 divisions are locked in, and 3 divisions are still up for grabs. I'd be interested to see who you think is going to take the divisions and who's going to take the wild card. I think it's going to be the National League West, whether it be the Dodgers or the Giants, and the Cardinals. And I think in the American League, it is very much up for grabs. But if we take a look at the standings right now, I think whoever doesn't win the American League East is going to end up taking that first wild card spot. The final wild card spot is going to be between the Orioles and the Astros. That's it for today. My name is Paul Cisneros, and this has been Sports Stuff.